All right, having to do something a bit interesting today because the webcam won't work ever since the last Windows update. So I have the fight card up here, and we're gonna roll with this. And it was meant to be bigger, but I'm getting a little frustrated playing with it. So for now, this is all we're getting. Fight number one, we have Drew Dober versus Jason Gonzalez. I'm taking Dober by decision. Not that I think Gonzalez cannot win this fight. He's a very long striker. He's pretty good actually at kickboxing, kind of a volume kickboxer with a decent submission game. If Dober cannot close the distance, he will probably lose because I think the reach difference is something like 5 inches between these two, which is extremely difficult. But Dober has dealt with reach disadvantages before and done okay. He is super tough. Gonzalez does not hit that hard in an individual shot. He's very much a stoppage by accumulation kind of guy. Dober should be the better wrestler, should be the better all around technical fighter. I'm going with Dober, but an upset here wouldn't be out of the equation, although I don't have great thoughts for Gonzalez long term, because I think when denied that kind of reach advantage, he's going to struggle. Yancy Medeiros versus Sean Spencer, a battle of two guys that I don't trust in any way. This is Medeiros' first trip to welterweight, which I think will be a good fit for him. He was fighting pre UFC, I believe, for a long time at middleweight and then just dropped down to lightweight, which was an odd move to cut through a weight class. I think the weight cut was a bit of a problem for him. I do think Spencer is the better fighter, but I've been burned picking Spencer repetitively, so take that for what you will. I think that Spencer's outside kickboxing game is better. We will see what in the end happens. CB Dalloway should beat Francimar Barrosa in his 205 debut. Barrosa is larger, probably stronger, a decent grappler, but very low output, very just not a very good fighter when it comes down to it. I mean, he's got a decent BJJ game. Not he's very slow. The guys who've given Dalloway problems in the past are guys who can catch him, and I just don't think that that is Barrosa. That being said, I hope Dalloway's put on a little bit of weight because the idea of him fighting at 205 is kind of scary, but he did hold his own physically with both Tim Bocha and Mark Munoz, both of whom are big, big middleweights, so I don't think that this will be a huge problem. Cal Maglash versus Brad Tavares, taking Tavares to win decision here. By the way, I got Dalloway via decision. Taking Tavares to win a decision here. Magalash makes things very, very difficult for people right out the gate. He's super, super aggressive, very powerful, pretty explosive, but tends to fade a little bit. There's not a lot of technique to his game. I just don't see this being the guy that Tavares has a problem with, even though I'm not a huge believer in Brad Tavares. Nick Lentz versus Michael McBride. This is a short notice fight for McBride, who he's really a top side grappler who's not going to get top control against Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz is going to win this via, if not decision, then submission. Betch Kohea versus Jessica I. I'm tempted to pick Jessica I because I feel that if Jessica I could get her physical talents and her technical talents together, there's a really good fighter there. I don't feel the same about Betch Kohea, who I think is an underwhelming athlete with a developing striking game and just a game period. It seems kind of weird to think of that as a former title contender, but her path to the title is, let's put it this way: people complain about Conor McGregor being protected on his way to a title shot against Jose Aldo. If you exclude the Chad Mendez fight, this was ridiculous. Not the worst. I mean, the worst title shot I think still ever given is Justin Eilers getting a title shot after losing to Paul Buentello way back at UFC 53 against Andrei Arlovsky. It's probably the worst, and the fight was terrible. But I'm gonna pick Betsko here. My problem is that while I have a lot of like faith in I having the right tool, she hasn't put it together, and She previously spoke with this level of confidence about herself that I think blinded her to her problems. She's potentially a very good boxer and kickboxer. She's potentially very hard to take down. She's potentially not a very uh, a pretty decent grappler. but she hasn't really shown it. And in her last fight against Sarah McMahon, I believe that was her last fight, anyways. The scraps and fight seem to be completely out of her, as if she's lost a lot of that self belief. Too much, I think. There was a time when she needed to become a little more realistic, but now I think she's become fatalistic about her fighting abilities, and it's not a good look for her. I'm taking Bethe Correia by decision. Jessica Andrade versus Joanne Calderwood. I'm going with Joanne Calderwood by decision. I'm not a big believer in Andrade or any fighter who is kind of a headhunter in the sense that they will throw so hard and impressively, but eventually gas themselves out. And Calderwood's not the type of girl who's going to get blown out of the water right off the bat. She can be outworked, she can be out athleted because she's not a tremendous athletic specimen, but she is probably one of the toughest girls in the division. She's a good striker with a good grappling base, the ability to be creative, the ability to be free flowing, not on the Yen and Jacek level, but very high. I see her taking this fight after enduring some early ugliness with Jessica Andrade on her way to a decision. Uriah Faber versus Jimmy Rivera. I'm taking Jimmy Rivera to TKO Uriah Faber. That sounds kind of stunning, but I've been really watching Faber for a while now. Just not look overly impressive. Getting dropped by Dominic Cruz is not even where I'm going with this, but the Frankie Saenz fight and the Francisco Rivera fight, both to me were signs of a reduced fighter, a guy heading downwards. Even the Alex Caceres fight, to a large extent, could be categorized as that. As a result, I'm going with Rivera, who is a very powerful puncher, very, very difficult to take down. He is an absolute spark plug, but I don't think Faber can get him down. I think at some point he gets clipped and put down. And that is how I see this going. Could Faber win? Hell yes. He's a veteran. He finds ways, he finds chinks in armors that we didn't even think really existed. And he capitalizes on them. But in this fight, I'm going with Jimmy Rivera to actually be the man to stop the California kid, Uriah Faber, and maybe send him into retirement. He's been talking about retirement for a long time now. Mickey Gall versus CM Punk, the people's main event, as it were. At 0-0, there's just nothing to say about CM Punk. All we have is some training footage to go off of. It doesn't look great. We've seen Mickey Gall fight against not good competition, but we have some rough idea of what he has, which is a somewhat powerful striking game, a good back take game with some decent submission ability. We know he trains with the Millers, so we can make inferences also off of that, just because that camp tends to produce very, very similar fighters in many, many ways. Rufus Sport's a bit different in the sense that his fighters are a little more varied, so we don't even know really, we have no idea what we're going to get in CM Punk. He's a guy in his late 30s with a lot of physical wear and tear on his body. I don't think he'll be overwhelmed by the moment because he has been to a WrestleMania a couple times. Big moments in professional wrestling, which do prepare you in a way for the shock of the crowd, but there's no reason to pick him to win this fight. Does that mean I'm going to be surprised if he does? No, because there's not a ton of reasons to pick Mickey Gall. There just are reasons to pick Mickey Gall. So I'm going with Mickey Gall by submission, but this is a complete crapshoot. Werdum versus Travis Browne. Not a lot has changed since they first fought. Browne is now, I think, with a worse camp in Glendale Fight Club. I think I've stated my thoughts on that camp before with Edwin Tarvidian and company, and how really I outside of Ronda Rousey, and even that is highly debatable because her stand-up was kind of non-existent when she went there, that no one's really gotten better in any perceivable way at that camp. And we're not that far removed from Werdum beating him the first time. Yeah, Werdum got knocked out by Stipe Miocic. Is that a sign he's getting too old? Is that a sign that he's heading downhill? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Werdum takes this fight either by submission or TKO again. In a fight that looks very similar to the first one, to be honest. Alistair Overeem versus Stipe Miocic in a much more interesting heavyweight fight, in my opinion. I've gone back and forth on this one. On Overeem's side, we have he's an excellent counter. He's an excellent outfighter. And that's something that Stipe Miocic hasn't really had to deal with in the past. And the few times he's dealt with guys who utilize elements of outfighting, looking at Junior Dos Santos and to a lesser extent Stefan Struve, he did lose, although many people thought he won the Dos Santos fight. But that was at a Dos Santos at probably his lowest moment. I mean, I guess you could argue Dos Santos' loss to Overeem was lower, and you'd probably be right. But either way, that time period was not an impressive looking JDS, and even JDS at that point still had his moments enough to sway the judges. On the other hand, there's the fact that Overeem is an incredibly fragile fighter, both in terms of physically and in terms of mentally. He makes mistakes that a guy with the number of fights he has should not make. He gets moments of heavy overconfidence. He gets moments of not being able to close the deal or stick to a game plan. He is not, as stated, not terribly physically durable, not terribly great on cardio. This is a 5-round fight. That being said, Miocic's cardio is also not great, or at least we've not seen it to be. We saw him get tired against Struve and get knocked out. He hasn't gone very far much since then in like high-paced fights. What we don't question about Miocic is he's a mean dude and he's pretty durable despite the knockout loss to Struve. Can he get in close enough to utilize what I think is superior boxing? And can his wrestling get this fight to the ground when Overeem is actually very difficult to take down and very lethal off of his back if you do put him there, specifically with the guillotine choke? As a result, I've gone back and forth on this. This is not even guaranteed to be my last pick on the matter. I am going, at this moment, with Stipe Miocic to win by 3rd round TKO. I think that he eventually does wear down Overeem. There's some scary moments in the first 2 rounds, but he does wear him down. He does hurt him, and he does finish him in the 3rd round. Could see also the 4th round. 5th round, I don't think so. I think both these guys will be tired by that point. And I hope it doesn't go that long, to be honest. I could change my mind. This is definitely the fight where I think I've been changing my mind the most on. I mean, I've gone back and forth on the Spencer Medeiros fight and the Dober Gonzalez fight as well. I and Kohei have gone back and forth on a couple times. Just as an off topic here, this is like a fight card with like guys I don't trust fighting guys I don't trust. See Yancy Medeiros versus Sean Spencer, CB Dalloway versus Francis Barboza, Cal Magalhaes versus Brad Tavares, Jessica I versus Becky Kohei, which is not a guy, it's a female fight, but and Jessica Andrade and Joanne Calderwood, even to a certain extent, it's like just people I don't really trust to deliver a performance that is really up to par with what we've expected from them at various points in their careers. Still, right now, going with Stipe to retain his title. That could also be with the Stipe not hugging me. I'm a big fan of Stipe. I've never been a big fan of Alistair Overeem. The fact that I'm pondering to picking Overeem may, to a certain extent, suggest that he's actually a much safer pick. But it's an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it, even if the rest of the card is not supremely great. I say that. Andrade versus Calderwood should be a good fight. Rivera versus Faber, I'm looking forward to. Browne, Werdum, as much as I think it's a 2 true outcome fight, is something I'm kind of looking forward to. On the undercard, I mean, there's not really anything on the undercard I'm looking forward to. I guess that's maybe the problem with the card. But for the most part, if you take away Gall Punk, I'm looking forward to everything on the main card. That's not me being a wrestler hater with the Punk thing. It's just when it comes down to it, do I want to pay money to see CM Punk's first ever MMA fight? The answer is no. If it was on a free card, I might even be excited about it. But when it comes down to it, part of the pay-per-view cost is going to that fight. Not that it's not worth it, because, like I said, we're getting a title fight that's very interesting. We're getting Uriah Faber on the card and Fabricio Werdum. Those will both be reasonably entertaining fights. Andrade and Calderwood is a big moment in the strawweight division. So there's plenty of stuff there, but at the end of the day, I'm just not quite stuff. I just don't like the idea that it's a pay-per-view debut for CM Punk. Anyways, that is all. So enjoy, and if you liked this format better, let me know. Perhaps I can throw together something snazzier in the background, even as opposed to just like a fight card like this. Um, anyways, have a good one.